everyone, and welcome to a new video. My name is Miriam. If this is your first time here, I never introduced myself, so I thought I would do so in this video. And I'm so happy that you are here, that you're watching this video. It is time for a little bit of a catch-up and a little bit of a channel update. Nothing drastic is happening. I'm not going anywhere. BookTube is the best hobby that I have discovered besides reading, and I am going to continue participating in BookTube, making videos, etc. It's just not going to be as often because some changes are happening in the next few months in my personal life, in my family, and I think things are just going to be a little busy and different, and I don't think I can commit to releasing the number of videos that I had been before. So I did just want to give a little life and channel update and then talk about the books I read in June because I still haven't filmed a June wrap up. It has been a really busy month. I've been studying. My nursing exam is July 26th, so we're almost there. Hopefully I'll start working in the month afterwards, and then I'll get into the groove of, I guess, adulting and life, and I'll be better at managing my time and filming videos and things like that. But needless to say, July has been very, very busy. I have been studying when I can, but it's also been very difficult because of things going on with my health. And I have mentioned a couple things here and there on like the community tab and in a couple of videos. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you that has left a comment or has, said that you're praying for me or anything like that. It's really meant a lot. And it has been tough just because the condition that I was diagnosed with is one that's very easy to treat, but everyone kind of recovers at their own pace, and the medication has some really frustrating and irritating side effects. And so honestly, the medication has been worse than the condition itself in terms of how I've been feeling. And for any of you who are curious and into medical things, the diagnosis is idiopathic intracranial hypertension. So basically, too much pressure in my brain was causing a lot of weird symptoms. My eyes were acting up, my vision was going a little funky, and there was just too much pressure on my eyes. And then I had like an MRI, eye test, a bunch of things done, and they don't know what's causing it because I don't have high blood pressure, I don't have a brain tumor, like praise the Lord for all of that. So they don't know why. But the last like 6 to 8 months have been difficult just because I've been getting recurring migraines and really, really bad ones. And I didn't know why. I thought they were just, chronic migraines. They run in my family. I was also getting really, really bad, like whooshing tinnitus, and I would always hear my heartbeat and really, really loud. Like it was like wind, and I was so uncomfortable, but I thought that was separate. I thought that was maybe an inner ear issue. And then I started getting weird peripheral vision issues, and I thought that was separate. And lo and behold, they were all connected. Got the diagnosis and started on this medication. And the medication, I'm on a very high dose because it's been taking a while to kind of bring the pressure down. I had a spinal tap done. That was very, very interesting. My intracranial pressure measured extremely high. So that, was in and of itself like the best diagnostic tool that the doctors could have used. So I'm really, really glad that everything happened so fast. That's actually a blessing because for any of you Canadians that are watching, our medical system, it's very, very difficult to be seen quickly. So I'm very grateful that everything happened fast and I got a diagnosis fast and was put on this medication fast. The medication side effects are very difficult, and I have been extremely fatigued, extremely drowsy, to the point that I'm sleeping a lot. So it's just been difficult to study because of that, and the only thing that really keeps me awake is either listening to music or reading. So while I'm studying, I will study for half an hour, take a 5-minute break, study for half an hour, take a 5-minute break. And in those breaks, I read. And then I'll do like a 50-minute study period and read for 10 minutes, etc. And it's been really helpful. And then I also start my day with a book, end my day with a book. It just kind of like gives me incentive to get up, get studying, get the day going. So it's been challenging, but I'm also very grateful for my family that I don't have, other major life responsibilities, so I can fully heal and just continue to get better. But again, thank you to everyone who has asked about me. I really, really appreciate it. It actually made me very emotional just knowing that you guys care, it's really, really sweet. And that's why I think this booktube community is amazing. And that was extremely rambly. I didn't know what I was going to say in this life/channel update, but here we are. I kind of just let y'all know what's been going on. And in terms of videos, I will continue to post, but I will be job hunting and I don't know what my hours will be like with work, so we'll see. Nursing is a little bit crazy, but I'm not leaving booktube. I love this community. I love, love, love it. It is so good for my mental health. I also have some church events happening in the fall, and then my sister is also having a baby. So it's gonna be quite busy this fall, but all good things. So there's a lot to look forward to, that is for sure. But let's move over to my June wrap up. So in June, I actually DNF'd quite a bit. I hit a pretty big reading slump, and I have one book to blame for that. It was awful. So we'll talk about that book in a second. But for the DNFs, I'm not gonna talk about all of them. A few of them I'm considering temporary DNFs. I would definitely want to try them again when I'm in the mood for them. And then two of them I'm saying they're less temporary, especially the classic. So one of them is a fairy tale retelling, and that is Stepsister. And this one I got really far into, actually. I passed the halfway point and I was like, why don't you just finish the book? But I just wasn't jiving with it. And the thing is, I'm not even that picky with fairy tale retellings. They're this subgenre that most of them work for me and I enjoy the majority of them. But for some reason, there was just something about this one that I just wasn't jiving with. And I think I had tried reading it right when the slump was starting. So I don't know if that's why. Maybe I will try this one again in the future. But I did get past the halfway point and I just wasn't enjoying it. And then the second DNF, and I definitely would try it again if someone did a good job of convincing me, because I've been wanting to read this book for so long and I didn't get that far. But that is Don Quixote by Cervantes. And this is a classic in which we have this man named Don Quixote, and he reads so many chivalry-centered romance stories and just gets so into these tales of knights in shining armor that he eventually goes crazy and believes that he is living, like his life is one of these stories. And so this entire book is basically a comedy, and I enjoyed the first few chapters. I thought it was really funny, and just seeing how other people dealt with his delusions. And he started an adventure, and then he was joined by this man named Sancho, and it was really fun. But then it got repetitive, and the same story, the same formula was happening over and over and over again, and I just got so bored. This is not the translation I had. I had borrowed one from the library, which I had heard was a really good one. This is the very antiquated translation. I liked the writing and I liked the humor, but it just got very repetitive, and I'm at a point right now where I'm not going to read a classic just because it's a classic. I'm going to read it because I enjoy it, and I'm learning a lot more about my reading tastes. And I'm just coming to realize also that classics that are, I guess, more on the adventure side are just not really my thing, with a few exceptions like Around the World in 80 Days, but in general, not really my thing. I'm just gonna say now, for a few of the books I read in June, I barely remember anything about them because I was not in the best place in June. So some of these books, I'm looking at my list and I'm like, I don't remember what they were about, and maybe that's why I didn't rate them very high, because they weren't memorable. But the first one, and I'm gonna try going from least favorite to favorite. The first one here, I would have DNF'd if it wasn't by Agatha Christie, just because I'm reading all of her full-length novels and I'm trying not to DNF her books. But I will admit I did skim a little bit of this book just because of how much I was hating it, and that is Passenger to Frankfurt, and I gave this 1 star. This was one of the weirdest books I have ever read, and nothing worked for me. I didn't like the writing. I don't know what Agatha Christie was trying to do with this book, but it was awful. It has to do with like stolen identity, world politics and conspiracy, the Nazi regime kind of, I guess, trying to come back, and I have nothing else to say about it. I hated it. So moving on. This next book is the book that put me into the biggest reading slump I have ever experienced. I think once I finished this book, I didn't pick up a single book for a week, 2 weeks. And I know that's not very long. For me, that almost never happens. If more than like 2 or 3 days goes by and I haven't at least listened to something on audio or read like a page or two of something, I just don't feel myself. So to let that much time go by without reading a single thing is huge. And yeah, this book, I hated it so much that I ended up loving my reading experience because I was hate reading it. And I also defaced the front cover, which I never do. And that is Jude the Obscure, or is it Jude the Complete Idiot? So if you've read this book, let's talk. Let's talk about what the title should be. What I do when I don't like a book is I read 5-star reviews and I try to see why people love a book that I hated so much. And for the most part, I usually agree and can understand people's perspectives, and I get it. Like, I get why it may have worked for them, why the book may have tickled their fancy in a certain way, or why they may have perceived the characters in a certain way while I perceive them to be different, etc. I understand. We all have different perspectives. But I truly do not understand how people can feel sympathy for Jude. I really don't. Although I am completely open to hearing more and hearing more opinions as to why we should sympathize with Jude and why we should feel bad for him. But anyways, so we have Jude, and he's this poor stonemason, and he wants to be this big hotshot, I don't know, scholar, whatever. So he goes on this mission. He travels around looking for a school, I think, and it just never works out. He never gets into what he wants to get into, and he's just never happy with his life. He's never happy with his lot in life. And then comes a life of depravity and bad choices and women who ruin him. And I'm not going to say anything else because I feel like for people who are interested in this book, it would spoil a lot of what happens. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not opposed to books with unlikable characters that make very bad decisions, but I appreciate when the author can clearly portray how characters are a product of their environment and, you know, even generational chains and whatever. But Jude is just, he had so many opportunities to make good choices, and he just made terrible choices at every opportunity. I think a lot of us can relate when you see someone that you care about or someone that you know, and they continue to make the same bad choice over and over and over again, knowing the consequences. It's not that you don't care about the person anymore. It's just you're more exasperated and you kind of do care less and less because said person should be mature enough to realize that the choice that they keep making is going to have the same outcome. How am I supposed to feel bad for a person who knows that if they keep doing the same stupid thing, the same stupid outcome is going to happen? You know what I'm trying to say. And I don't care about Jude. I don't care. So reading this book, I wanted to scream at him, and I wanted to ask Thomas Hardy, who is 6 feet under, what the heck were you thinking? What was your point in this? Like, why? Why write this book? Because all I got from it was marriage is bad, women are awful, and poor Jude. We have to feel bad for him. That's basically what I got from this book. I'm really sorry if it's a book that you love. I know it's beloved by a lot of people. I know. But besides Hardy's writing, why is this book such a masterpiece? I don't understand. I really don't. So this book sent me into a huge slump. Thank you. All right, next up is Third Girl by Agatha Christie, and in this one it was a little odd. We have a girl who just shows up at Poirot's office and basically says that she thinks she killed someone, and she doesn't really remember much else. And Poirot and Ariadne Oliver, who is in a few other Agatha Christie books, they kind of team up and try to figure out what the heck this girl is talking about. That's basically the story. They're trying to figure out what on earth she means by I killed someone. So it was pretty average. I wasn't wowed by anything. I think I gave it 2.5, 2.75 stars. The one thing I did enjoy was having Ariadne Oliver on page. She is very funny. But besides that, I just found the book to be very meh. I forgot to mention this was actually one of the 3 books that I read for Janelle-a-thon, and this was a readathon in honor of Janelle from Too Fond of Books, who sadly passed away. And the idea was to read books that reminded you of Janelle. So I read mysteries, knowing how much Janelle loved mysteries. So that was one of the 3. I read another Agatha Christie, and this one I gave 3 stars. I thought it was also pretty middle of the road. That is Murder is Easy, and this is a standalone, so it's none of the well-known detectives. And in this one we have a retired police officer who is on a train, and he hears this elderly woman talk about some murders that have happened. And then he realizes that in this small English village, there is a serial killer that has been killing off a lot of people. So he goes and tries to figure out what's going on. The mystery was a little convoluted, and it was just a bit anticlimactic for me, but overall it was okay. Next up we have a fairy tale retelling. We have The Princess Pact, and this is the 3rd book in the Four Kingdoms series. I read the first 2 books a few years ago and overall enjoyed them, and so I wanted to continue the series and see what I think about the next books. I'm not sure if I will finish the series, just because this book, I ended up giving it 3 stars. I thought it was fun and cute, and it's a twist on Rumpelstiltskin, so that was fun. At the time I read it, I was in a big fairy tale retelling mood, so it quenched my thirst for fairy tale retellings. And the one thing though is the romance. It is so sappy, so cringy, and just, it's too much for me. So I don't know if I will be continuing this series or reading anything else by Melanie Sellier. There are so many fairy tale retellings out there, and I just don't know if she's for me. All right, so this next book here, I think that I would have rated it higher and enjoyed it a lot more if I had read it at a different time. So I tried reading this when I was reading Jude the Obscure. I wish I read this at a different time, but that is The Moon Spinners by Mary Stewart. This book checks off so many boxes for me, and it just feels like a book that would be an instant 5-star read for me, and it could have been higher. I gave it 3.5 stars, rounded it up to 4 on Goodreads. I have to say, I want to read everything Mary Stewart has written if they're all written this beautifully. She writes so beautifully. Her nature descriptions were incredible, and this is also a classic. I believe it was written in the 50s. It looks like 1962. So this is a book that is set on the island of Crete, and oh my gosh, I felt like I was there. I felt like I was soaking up the hot Mediterranean sun. The setting was just so incredible. The sense of place, you truly feel like you're there. But I struggled with the story because of the slump. It was not a bad story. The story was really good. It kind of is what I would say sort of a thriller, but not really the edge of your seat type of thriller. Anyways, what the story is about, we have a woman named Nicola who is on vacation on the island of Crete, and she ends up going on a little adventure. She's kind of like hiking through the hills, and she stumbles across an injured man, and he is also an Englishman, and she realizes that he actually saw something that he shouldn't have seen that has to do with the locals, the local people of this island. And he's kind of in hiding. He's also extremely injured, and so she's trying to help him. And she's also determined to find his brother because his brother's missing, and so she goes looking for him and realizes there is a lot more going on than she had anticipated, and danger follows her, and it's so good. I just wanted to read one little excerpt from the beginning. It says, "But when the big white bird flew suddenly up among the glossy leaves and the lemon flowers and wheeled into the mountain, I followed it. What else is there to do when such a thing happens on a brilliant April noonday at the foot of the white mountains of Crete, when the road is hot and dusty, but the gorge is green and full of the sound of water, and the white wings flying ahead flicker in and out of deep shadow, and the air is full of the scent of lemon blossom." It's a truly beautifully written story, and it's a really great summertime read as well if you're looking for a classic that has beautiful writing and a bit of a thriller element to it. I would highly recommend. All right, these next 3 books, I'm not going to talk about what they're about or their plot because everyone and their mother on BookTube has read them. If they read YA fantasy, I feel like everyone has read these, and there's no point. These were also a reread for me, so I have read them before, and the reason I read these was to try to get out of my reading slump. I actually reread 4 books this month, so 3 of them are all a trilogy, and then I have another one. So the trilogy is the Caraval trilogy. So I don't have the first book with me right now because my sister is reading it, but we have Caraval, then we have Legendary and Finale. And okay, these books are kind of trashy in my opinion. Just a little bit. So I gave Caraval 3.5 stars. I gave Legendary and Finale both 4 stars. I really enjoyed my reread, and these are books that I don't think I'll ever get rid of. I could totally see myself reading them again in the future. I had such a great time with them. But to me, they're just vibes and entertainment, nothing of substance. But that's just me. And another reason I love them is the sister relationship, Scarlett and Tella. I love them. I really do. Just think the romances are cringe, and just a lot of the romantic situations and scenes are just. But these got me out of my reading slump. They did. So they are very special to me. Not only did these books get me out of my reading slump, but these books got me into YA fantasy, into fantasy in general. Read them for the first time in 2020, read them again this year, and could totally see myself rereading them in the future. They're so fun. Just a little trashy, but really fun. All right, another book that I reread is The Broken Girls. And like I said, I reread in June to try to get out of this reading slump. And I wouldn't say this one helped. I actually lowered my rating on this book. So initially I gave it 5 stars. The first time I read it, I was just blown away, absolutely in love. And this time around, I gave it 4 stars. I still very much enjoyed it, but there were just certain parts of it that I had forgotten about and things I don't really like. So it is dual timeline, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I personally do enjoy. So we have Vermont in the 50s and then present day. And in the 50s, we have this group of girls in a boarding school, and they're considered troublemakers or illegitimate. There's a reason why they're there, and it's usually not a good reason. And there is this rumor that the place is haunted, and they just keep experiencing these things that suggest it is. And then in present day, we have a journalist, and 20 years previously, her sister had died. She was murdered, but this journalist, she suspects something that has to do with this boarding school from the 50s, and kind of starts connecting certain things, and the 2 timelines, things kind of converge. So it was really good. I really enjoyed my reread. I really like how the author uses the spook factor, because it's not too scary for me, and I really don't like horror. Like, I don't like possession, anything like that. So with this, she uses ghosts, but to tell a much deeper story, and I like that. I appreciate that. So again, I overall enjoyed my reread. I just forgot that there was some language in here that I wasn't a fan of, and also some fade to black scenes, which I could have done without. But other than that, I did very much enjoy this book, and I am glad that I reread it. This next book, I'm really struggling to remember what it's about, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, where you know how you felt reading a book and you are able to say, oh, I love that book so much, even though you have no idea what it was about. Happens all the time. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I remember bits of it. I remember the characters. I remember this baby elephant that was absolutely precious, and I remember the atmosphere because it is set in India. So I remember a lot about the book, but I don't remember the mystery. So let's go to Goodreads and read the very short summary. So it says, on the day he retires, Inspector Ashwin Chopra inherits 2 unexpected mysteries. The first is the case of a drowned boy whose suspicious death no one seems to want solved. And the second is a baby elephant. As his search for clues takes him across the teeming city of Mumbai, from its grand high-rises to its sprawling slums and deep into its murky underworld, Chopra begins to suspect that there may be a great deal more to both his last case and his new ward than he thought. And he soon learns that when the going gets tough, a determined elephant may be exactly what an honest man needs. This book was really fun. The baby elephant was the cutest thing ever, and Inspector Detective Chopra, whatever his title is, he was really fun as well. His wife was also a very interesting character, and I just had such a great time with this book, so I would highly recommend. It is a very fun mystery, kind of a mix of cozy elements with more hard-boiled elements. It was really, really fun, and I would highly recommend it to any mystery lover. It's also the first book in a series, so I'm very excited to continue on with the series. All right, and next up we have The Ladies of Ivy Cottage by Julie Klassen. This is book 2 in the Tales from Ivy Hill series, and in this entire trilogy there are multiple main characters, and I actually really like that. There is, I would say, one main character, and she is Jane Bell, and her story really does span from book 1 to book 3, and I actually have already finished book 3. I read that in July as well. But in this one, we really get more into the characters who were side characters in the first book. So I feel like they really take center stage in this one. And in particular, we learn more about 2 women named Rachel and Mercy and what they are struggling with. This is a Regency era story, and Rachel is really struggling because she doesn't have money. Her father has passed away. She's just in this place of, I don't know what on earth to do with my life. I am a single woman and just don't really know what to do and who to turn to. And she decides to start this library, this circulating library. So I really enjoyed that part of the story. And then we have Mercy, who is my personal favorite character, and she has this girls' school that she runs, and she runs this with her aunt, and she is determined that the rest of her life will just be spinsterhood, or will it? So this is a really fun story. I really enjoyed the series. Julie Klassen, I feel like her stories are very slow paced, so you need to just be there for the long haul and just soak in the setting and the characters and feel like, you know, you're taking a stroll with them and you're doing life with them, basically. It's that kind of story. It's not a fast-paced, edge-of-your-seat story at all, but I very much enjoyed this book, and I am looking forward to talking about the third one in my July wrap-up. And then I have one last book to talk about, and this was my favorite of the month, and that is The Tale of Holly Howe by Susan Wittig Albert. This is the second book in the Cottage Tales mystery series, and oh my gosh, this was so cute. If cottagecore was a book, you're looking at it. This one was also very summery. This is all the summery cottagecore vibes. There is zero thrill. It is just calm, beautiful, talking animals. In this one, we have a shepherd who was found dead, and Beatrix Potter suspects foul play, and she, along with a bunch of animals who talk with each other, not with humans, but just amongst each other, they all want to get to the bottom of it. So that is what they do. And that's basically this entire book. And it's perfection. There is a side plot with this young girl who was recently orphaned, and it was a very sweet side plot. I really enjoyed that, and just in general, the story was so good. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the first one. The first one I think I gave 4.5 stars, so this one I gave 4 stars. It's a perfect summery cottagecore book to read. Would highly recommend. All right, so those are the books that I read in June, and before I close off the video, I did want to quickly mention that I am participating in Jane Austen July. I just haven't had a chance to do anything dedicated to Jane Austen July. So if you haven't seen any of last year's content, I did film some reading vlogs. I'll have all of those linked below. And I did go a lot more all out for Jane Austen July last year. And hopefully next year will be the same, but this July I couldn't. I don't have time to film vlogs. But I have been reading books for this readathon. So the group read is Northanger Abbey, and I am almost finished. Hopefully in the next couple of days I'll have finished this book. I am adoring this. This is a reread. So I have read this a few years ago, but I think I gave it 4 stars the first time around. I don't know why. This is incredible. I'm obsessed. This is definitely a 5-star book, so I can't wait to talk about this in my July wrap-up. I'm also reading Camilla by Fanny Burney, and I'm about that far, and this book is massive. It is, let's see, 913 pages, and the font is tiny. I'm really enjoying this though. Like, I'm authentically enjoying this, as difficult as it was to get into it just because of how wordy it is. And I mean, it was written in the 1790s, but I'm loving this. Like, I really like the characters. I can't even really say what the plot structure is like because I'm not very far in, and so far it's just been the characters going to a ball, and well, it started off with them as kids, growing up, going to balls, talking about marriage, different suitors, the typical. but I'm obsessed. Like, I get excited to pick this up again. I won't be too upset if I don't finish this in the month of July. That's totally fine, but I will try. I also find it interesting how last July I read The Mysteries of Udolpho, which is mentioned in Northanger Abbey, and this July I'm reading Camilla, which is also mentioned in Northanger Abbey. So I think every July I'm gonna try to read a book that is mentioned in one of Jane Austen's books. I'm gonna try to find a list of all the books that Jane Austen has mentioned that her characters have read or anything like that. But yeah, I read The Mysteries of Udolpho last year, overall enjoyed it, and I'm loving this. So that is Camilla. And then I also plan on starting A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting very, very soon, hopefully in the next week, as well as Persuasion. So these are the priorities. These are the priorities for the last couple of weeks of July. I might try to pick up another Regency era story. We shall see what I can get to, but I don't want to burn myself out and get tired of all the Regency era stories and classics and things like that. So I've also been reading like a couple mysteries and some books that have nothing to do with Jane Austen or the Regency era or anything like that, just to kind of have palate cleansers. All right, but that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I would love to continue chatting below about the books that you've read in June and what stood out to you, what your favorites were. As always, I appreciate each of you for taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It means so much. And like I said, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.